WHGE 95.3 FM, the Advocacy Education Station. Coming up, the Open Eye.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression on our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host and third eye optometrist, Patrice Gibbs, ready to get your eye open. And as we always start you off, every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. And we do that right here on WHGE. Let me get my disclaimer out the way.
The views and opinions expressed on Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
All right. Hey, how you doing, Steve? Ready to get them started? Where we going to start at? We're going to start in Africa. There is only one birthplace for humanity, and that is Africa. That is what all credible evidence tells us. And if white people had not convinced us that Africa is the worst place there ever was, we would not be having this discussion. Our enemies love it when we deny our roots. A brother told me that he rejected the name African because he heard, not because he knew, because he heard it was named by a Roman general. He said that he was a Native American. Now, first of all, African was not named after a Roman general. The Roman general was named after Africa. Hold on. Wait a minute. Let me get with that. I got something right here. Okay. All right. Yeah. Like I said, Africa was not named by the oppressor. This myth comes from the name of Roman General Scipio Africanus. His name was Publius Cornelius Scipio. Africanus was added to his name because he had defeated Hannibal of Carthage in North Africa. Julius Caesar was known as Caesar Germanicus because of his military victory in Germany. This was a common practice in Rome. The name Africa is not mysterious nor complicated. Where it comes from is actually quite basic and makes a lot of sense. The name of the land was first named in Kemet. Af meaning house, Ra indicating God, Ka meaning spirit. Africa, the house of God's spirit. We are the children of the house of God's spirit, Africa, where with honor. We are Africans burnt in God's own furnace. All right. Let's face it. it's something that people run around Native American. But America was named after the Italian explorer, Amerigo Vespucci. So my question is, how can you reject Africa so quickly and then readily embrace the term Native American? Think, people, think. Let's face it, a lot of us are just taught from cradle to grave to be anti-African, and we do it instinctively because white folks have taught us to. And some of us would rather be anything other than an African. So we choose words like Moor, Mer, Negus, Native American. We should try to be honest and consistent. Otherwise, we're just playing with ourselves. Don't run from Africa, run to Africa. Dr. Runoko Rashidi teaches us that. For centuries, the rich and diverse history of Africa has been overlooked, undervalued, and often intentionally distorted. However, recent archaeological historical findings have shattered these misconceptions, revealing a continent with a profound and fascinating past. Here are 5 remarkable discoveries that showcase Africa's significant contribution to human history. The cradle of humanity, Africa is the birthplace of humanity, with the oldest known skeletal remains of modern humans discovered in East Africa dating back 195,000 years. Pre-human origins. Pre-human skeletons found in Africa date back an astonishing 4 to 5 million years, with the oldest known ancestral type of mankind, Australopithecus ramidus, living around 4.4 million years ago. Pioneers of fishing. Africans were the first to organize fishing expeditions, with evidence of finely crafted harpoon tips and daggers discovered in Katanga, Congo, dating back nearly 90,000 years. Mining and innovation. The oldest known mine in the world was discovered in Swaziland, dating back to 43,000 years. This ancient mine showcases the ingenuity and innovative spirit of Africa's ancestors. And let me tell you something about mining. Okay, when you mine, you're mining with a purpose, and that's to contain the resource. But you just don't, to obtain the resource. But you don't just obtain the resource. Okay, when you mine, you have a purpose for that resource. And this requires industry, which means that you have to have all the science that goes into processing that resource to even have a reason to mine. So if you have industry, that means you have society, civilization. Okay, so you have factories. So all the science has to go into the process of building the factory, the process, the mineral, or the resource. 43,000 years ago. Slow it down, Pat. Mathematical pioneers. The Nshango bone, discovered in Congo, is a tool handle with engraved notches that demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of arithmetic, dating back some 25,000 years ago. You will remember what I just told you about mining, so it probably dates back further than that. These discoveries not only rewrite the history books, but also underscore the significant contributions of Africa has made human civilization. It is essential that we continue to uncover and celebrate Africa's rich cultural heritage, challenging the misconceptions of the past and inspiring a new generation of scholars, historians, and enthusiasts. WHGE 95.3 FM. Open eye. Hey, share. Where the music? Oh, there it is. right, all right. WHGE 95.3 FM. Patrice Gibbs, the open eye. All right. You might have heard of Black Wall Street. By this time, I'm sure many of you have. Even if you've just heard about it lately, you've heard about it. I think I first discovered it like in the early 90s, maybe even before then, early 90s, late 80s, somewhere around there. Okay. But have you ever heard of O.W. Gurley? In 1905, Gurley and his wife sold their property in Noble County and moved 80 miles to the oil boom town of Tulsa. Okay. Gurley purchased 40 acres of land in North Tulsa and established his first business, a rooming house on a dusty road that would become Greenwood Avenue. He subdivided his plot into residential and commercial lots and eventually opened a grocery store. As the community grew around him, Gurley prospered. Between 1910 and 1920, the black population in the area he had purchased grew from 2,000 to nearly 9,000 in the city with a total population of 72,000. It's about the size of Wilmington. The black community had a large working class population, as well as doctors, lawyers, and other professionals who provided services to them. Soon, the Greenwood section was dubbed Negro Wall Street by Tuskegee educator Booker T. Washington. That's where the name came from. Greenwood, now called Black Wall Street, was nearly self-sufficient with black-owned businesses, many initially financed by Gurley, ranging from brickyards and theaters to a chartered airplane company, man. Gurley built the Gurley Hotel at 112 North Greenwood and rented out spaces to smaller businesses. His other properties included a 2-story building at 119 North Greenwood, which housed the Masonic Lodge and a black employment agency. He was also one of the founders of Vernon AME Church. It's the man that was the founder of Black Wall Street, O.W. Gurley. All right. You know, it's something, and I've seen so many people say this. Recently, some people in, where was it? Having a brain fart. In, I think it's a city in Oklahoma, was it? I'm not sure. But it's a sundown town. And I've seen some of the defenders come on and say, well, I've never experienced any racism. Imagine that with your white ass. I guess you haven't. And you're welcome to come to our town. Matter of fact, I heard this girl say, I'll hold your hand and walk you through the town. And you know what the response of black people was? That's a trap. I ain't taking my ass over there. Yeah. It reminds me of the commentator. Well, I don't see color. How come no one ever sees color unless they're hiring, firing, or aiming a goddamn gun? You see color then, no? Yeah. And telling me that I'm obsessed with talking about racism in America is like telling me I'm obsessed with swimming when I'm drowning. I like that. This is the thing. It is a quote from Chris Rock. We treat racism in this country like it's a style that America went through, like wearing bell bottoms or something, and like flared legs and lava lamps. Oh, that crazy thing we did. We were hanging black people. Not we, but America was hanging black people. America treats it like it was a fad instead of a disease that eradicates millions of people. You got to get at it in a lab and study it and see its origins and see what it's immune to and what breaks it down. Yeah. and of course that brings us around to our history and what happened. And, I had to tell you that I actually liked the movie The Ten Commandments. It's really a great movie. It really is. It's spectacle and visually exciting. When Moses parted the Red Sea, that was a hell of a scene. But here's the thing. If Jews had been living in Egypt for centuries as slaves, surely they would have noticed the pyramids and the Sphinx. Strangely, neither of these great architectural wonders of the world are mentioned even once in the Old Testament of the Bible. But I tell you what is mentioned, and I'm not sure if it is actually mentioned. I have to take a closer look at that. But that's the disgusting myth of original sin. There's no such thing as sin. People do good and bad things, but there's no such thing as sin. Sin is a myth. The concept of sin was created as a recruitment method to get you to join an immoral religious organization and to extort money from you. And that's what they do. Because if you don't tithe and give, you know God's not going to bless you. And the likelihood, Satan's going to get you. Religious leaders and believers tell you that you have an imaginary problem, and coincidentally, they have the magical cure for your imaginary problem. Your church, like George Carlin says, one hell of a hustle. And you look around the country, and we have an area in the South, that encompasses a large part of the South. Is known as the Bible Belt. This is where, all the good Christians live. BS. So nationalist Christians live. Tell you something about this area called the Bible Belt. It's also the divorce belt, the teen pregnancy belt, the gay porn belt, the obesity belt. It's where the most homicides are committed. The homicide belt is also the poorest area in the country, the poverty belt. Cigarettes are pretty cheap down there. And it's the smoker's belt. Infant mortality is off the hook. It's the infant death belt, the low life expectancy belt. And guess what else? It's also the MAGA belt. Okay? Yeah, it's also the MAGA belt. Where they want to, and some of these schools are already doing it. They want, they want to teach about God and the Bible in school. Because when we had prayer in school and talked about the Bible in school, things were much better. Really? If you believe teaching about God in schools would improve people's morality, you'll first need to explain why it doesn't work when you do it at your church. If you want to meet some sinful ass people, go to church. And it's something that, of course, these Christian nationalists want, they want to somehow fuse the Constitution with the Bible. And what they want to do is they want to turn the country into a theocracy based on their interpretation of the Bible. So these wealthy people, these so-called elites, and what have you, along with these religious zealots, They want to run the country based on their minuscule understanding of religion. Let me tell you something, allowing rich people and Christian zealots to run the world has been tried before. We named it the Dark Ages for a good goddamn reason. WHGE 95.3 FM, Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. You know, it's something that a handful of billionaires now will have unprecedented control over banking, the food we eat, the health care we have access to, and now the information we receive. This is what an oligarchy looks like. It's a quote from, I got a quote here from Keith Richards. If you don't know Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, the oldest man in the world, allegedly, when God said, "Let there be light," Adam said, "Who's that?" God said, "This Keith Richards. He was here when I got here." Keith Richards said, "When I was young, I didn't believe in brainwashing. I thought to myself, how can anyone be that stupid? And then I moved to America and realized I was living amongst a populace that widely defended capitalism. Yet most of them didn't have any capital." Jeez Louise. Yeah. And moving right along. I remember this when I was coming up, go to the park, to the recreation center, and a mobile library would pull up. In Black American neighborhoods during the 1950s, when it started, mobile libraries took the form of specially designed vehicles, commonly buses or vans, that housed a diverse collection of books and educational materials. Now, part of the motivation for this was because libraries were segregated. Okay? And you as a black kid could not go in the library and borrow a book or sit there and study. The nice old white lady behind the counter will come over to you and whisper, "What are you doing in here? You don't belong in here. You have to leave. I don't want to have to call the cops." Yeah. And this was well into the 50s, probably well into the 60s, actually. Well into the 60s. The central mission of these mobile libraries was to bridge the gap in access to books, educational resources, and informational resources for communities that were geographically or socioeconomically isolated from traditional libraries or segregated from the libraries. The impediments of segregation and poverty presented significant obstacles to many African American neighborhoods seeking to access traditional libraries, therefore increasing the importance of mobile libraries. Through regular visits to schools, community centers, and public parks, mobile libraries provided community members with the opportunity to borrow books and acquire new knowledge. Consequently, mobile libraries fulfilled a critical role in advancing literacy and education within African American communities, during the 1950s and subsequent years. Very much needed, as were the community centers and what have you. And it was something that we would go to these mobile libraries that parked at, pulled up to the park when we were playing ball. And it was something to see so many kids excited. I wish we had that now. I wish kids got excited about books as we did. I wish kids got excited about books as they do the new iPhone. We got excited to have access to these books. And especially with what's going on now, with the banning of books, especially in the Bible Belt. Just told you about that. Now that's word. Just told you about that. With these books being banned, we need to bring this back. Bring back that excitement to learn, that excitement to read. I can remember trading books with my friends. Man, did you read this? That's what we need to get that back. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. Hey, Janice, I see you. All right. Thank you, Janice. Blessings to you too. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. I'm sure by now you all heard of what happened Wednesday. United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was shot and killed by an unknown gunman in New York City. Yeah. Excuse me. 3 words: deny, defend, and depose, which are alleged tactics insurance companies are accused of using to avoid paying claims. Allegedly. Yeah, it makes me think of the Pixar movie Incredibles, when Mr. Incredible had to retire from superhero work, and he got a job in an insurance company. And their main goal was to deny people's claims. And this is playing with people's lives. There are a couple of movies that address this. Deny, defend, and depose. This hooded gunman has obviously been a victim of these insurance companies' penchant for taking in a lot of money and paying out as little as possible. Yeah, because this is what they do. Thompson was fatally shot outside the New York Hilton Midtown, where an investor meeting for United Health Group was set to take place on Wednesday. And of course, the police are still looking for him as of Thursday morning. They were, and they still are. Yeah. Police have not named a suspect or a motive in the shooting. I think the 3 words on the shell casings give you the motive. The 3 words echo a common phrase: delay, deny, defend, describing allegations leveled at insurers who avoid paying claims. The phrase adopted by critics of the healthcare industry refers to the ways insurance companies delay paying claims, deny valid claims in whole or part, and defend their actions by forcing claimants to enter litigation. And they got an army of lawyers that defeat you in court. You know, according to Delay, Deny, Defend, Why Insurance Companies Don't Pay Claims and What You Can Do About It, a book on the topic published in 2010. The book claims to be an expose of insurance injustice and a plan for consumers and lawmakers to fight back. Okay, here's what we need to do. Here's how you fight that. Outlaw these damn insurance companies. Because all they do is collect your money and try their damnedest not to hold up their end of the bargain. You know, that makes me think of tithes in church. You pay these tithes in church. And I've seen it so many times with so many churches. People pay tithes, been in church 30, 40, 50 years. Run into some financial trouble. Turn to the church. And what did the church tell you? Pray about it. Pray about it. Deny, defend, and depose. This is what they do. You know, and it's something that this book, which was written by Jay Feynman, an expert in insurance and law, and an expert in insurance law, and a professor emeritus at Rutgers University, who set out to show companies denying valid claims was the result of increasing and systematic focus on maximizing profits by companies such as Allstate and State Farm. Sister Sherry says she used to work at United Health in the behavioral department, and what she saw, how they did the patients, was terrible. When I first started there, they wouldn't discharge patients until they were stable. Now, you know, it's something. If I can see the rest of that, yeah. Until they were stable enough to be transferred to another facility. It's from Sister Sherry. After a while, patients were discharged after being inpatient for a shorter time. Inpatient for being a patient for a shorter time, resulting in patients returning. See, they're not even smart. A revolving door of those patients was created until the hospital wouldn't let them come back due because they were exhausted. They have exhausted their benefits. They're some cold-hearted ass people. Now, I guess the rest of you CEOs are sweating. Yeah, the suspect, he's still at large. The NYPD has offered a $10,000 reward for anyone with information about the killing. And the police released the first photos they believe to show the suspect's face. A senior law enforcement official told the New York Times they still did not know the suspect's name, but were looking at several leads. You know what? I think the people pretty much support what he did. I'm not one calling for murder and what have you, but these some rotten bastards that are playing with people's lives because they're greedy. WHGE 95.3 FM, Dove and I. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist here. Okay? You know, it's something that we're still dealing with the hair oppression. Just recently, a young lady was fired from her job for wearing her hair the way it naturally grows out of her head. Now, we passed a federal law called the Crown Act that prohibits racially motivated hair discrimination. But in 43 states, you can still be discriminated against because of your hair. We're the only people in the country whose hair is policed. We know the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Crown Act. That was a couple of years ago. The Crown Act, which stands for Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair, would ban discrimination based on an individual's texture or hairstyle. Representative Ayanna Pressley said on the House floor, "The House affirmed that black is beautiful, and so is our hair. Whether you're a student, employee, or our next Supreme Court justice, you deserve to show up as your full self, with your head held high. For anyone who has ever faced hair discrimination or punishment for showing up exactly as you are, the Crown Act is for you." The House vote was along party lines, and it will now go to the Senate for consideration. Back in 2019, New York City officially banned hair discrimination based on hairstyle. The thing is, some of these people just are not going to accept that. It makes me think, what happened in the 70s? You know, when we started growing afros. And you know what? And there's something, it makes me think of my father. Because he would say, go in there and get the natural comb. Because you have the natural. And the crazy thing is, to hear people say, and I've heard black women say it to other black women, "Oh, you've gone natural? You've gone natural?" No, I stopped putting chemicals in my hair. You're going natural? And to me, it's one of the saddest things is to see a young girl under 10 years old with a perm. Yeah, I can remember coming up and seeing my older sister and how proud she was when my mom let her get a natural. It's something that we have to actually take pride and teach our children to take pride. And something to me that should be mundane. That's wearing our hair the way it naturally grows out of our head. And this is something that came along after the 70s, because if you remember, and it's something as black men too, you know, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe even before that, black men wore the combed hairstyle. You got your hair combed with lye. Burn your damn head with lye. And it was so crazy that what you had is by the 50s, okay, you had black men wearing the hair in this processed style that were imitating white men. And white men who considered black men hip and cool started wearing, you know, the DA, the duck ass, the duck tail, or whatever it was, imitating black men. So you have white men imitating black men, imitating white men. I goddamn confused this crap had us. I almost said something else. Now, the Crown Act states that black people have the right to wear their hair in natural, treated, untreated hairstyles such as locks, cornrows, twists, braids, bantu knots, fades, afros, and or the right to keep their hair in an uncut, untrimmed state. We have that right. Stand up for yourself. Dr. King told us. James Brown told us. Dr. King told us black is beautiful. Yeah, a lot of our leaders taught us that. James Brown said, say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. WHGE 95.3 FM. Open eye. Patrice Gibbs here, your third eye optometrist. What's the day? The day is the 7th. Yeah. 3 days ago was the 4th. Say his name. On the 4th, it's the anniversary of the slaying of Black Panther leader in Chicago. When black people face the fight of their lives, it's important to understand why his life and death still means so much to us. Fred Hampton. On December 4th, which was the anniversary of the slaying of Black Panther leader in Chicago, when black people faced the fight of their lives, like I said, it's important to understand why his life and death still means so much. Fred Hampton. The charismatic chair of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party accomplished a great deal before he was cut down at the age of 21. Hampton headed the Chicago chapter of the Panthers, where he formed a multiracial rainbow coalition of organizations, including Students for a Democratic Society, the Blackstone Ranger Street Gang, and a Puerto Rican organization known as the National Young Lords. He also started a community service program that included a free breakfast program for children and a free medical clinic, and held political education classes. 21 years old! And under his leadership, the Chicago Black Panthers monitored the police and looked out for instances of police brutality. Most of all, Fred Hampton brokered a truce among Chicago's major street gangs. Excuse me. The Black Panthers in Hampton caught the attention of J. Edgar Hoover, the director of the FBI, through his counterintelligence program, or COINTELPRO. Hoover sought to prevent the rise of a black messiah and expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, and otherwise neutralize the activities of black nationalists, hate-type organizations and grouping, their leadership, spokesmen, membership, and supporters, and to counter their propensity for violence and civil disorder. They did not have a propensity for violence. Hoover targeted black figures such as Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and organizations such as the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the Christian Leadership Conference, and of course, the Black Panthers. Yes, indeed. Going back to, I got a quote on that. I'm coming back to the Panthers, but Steve said that we use wild root cream oil the Comar Pompadours. Wildroot was the only sponsor of the Nat King Cole television show. All right, back to Fred Hampton. Hoover viewed the Black Panthers breakfast program for school kids as the greatest threat to internal security of the United States. Grits, not guns. See, what you have to understand is, if people become self-sufficient, they're dangerous. All right? So this was looked at as very dangerous to white supremacy. Self-sufficiency. And the hallowed American tradition of going after youthful black power and excellence and stopping them in their tracks, the FBI took out the Black Panthers. And they took out Fred Hampton. Yeah? We should be clear that this was a Chicago gangland execution, an assassination plot by the Hoover, FBI, the Chicago Police Department, and Cook County State's Attorney's Office. In early morning hours of December 4th, 1969, the police raided Hampton's apartment. Hampton and Mark Clark, a Panther leader from Peoria, Illinois, died. Deborah Johnson, Fred Hampton's fiancée, who was 8.5 months pregnant, survived and was charged with attempting to murder the police. A federal investigation found only one shot came from Hampton's house, while the cops fired 82 to 99 bullets. The murders ended the career of Cook County State's Attorney Edward V. Hanrahan. The cops could not contain the glee on their faces when they carried out Hampton's body. Over 5,000 people attended Hampton's funeral. And Jesse Jackson and Ralph Abernathy eulogized him, 21 years old. Meanwhile, William O'Neill, a rotten son of a flea-bitten bitch, Hampton's bodyguard, was an FBI informant who provided the police with the floor plan, indicating an X for Hampton's bid, and likely drugged Hampton the night of the raid. O'Neill later committed suicide. Well, he should have. No one went to prison, as all law enforcement agents were cleared of wrongdoing. The families of Hampton and Clark received $1.85 million settlement in 1983. Fast forward some years later, Black America finds itself in the throes of police brutality epidemic, with black men, women, and children killed on a regular basis by police violence. In Chicago, still dealing with the gang murder of 9-year-old Tashawn Lee and the fatal police shooting of Rekia Boyd and Ronald Johnson, the police execution of Laquan McDonald has galvanized black activism. Okay, Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy was shown the door. And of course, it was during this recent epidemic of police murder gave the rise to the Black Lives Matter movement. Like Fred Hampton, the Black Panther shine a spotlight on injustice we face at the hands of the police and criminal justice system. They killed Fred Hampton for the same reason they killed Sandra Bland, Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, Tamir Rice, Walter Scott, Sonia Macy. And just as there were forces who waged war against the Black Panthers, there are politicians now who are demonizing and monitoring peaceful black protests. The Tangerine Tyrant wants to pull out the military, want to send out the military to kill American citizens that he considers enemies. And guess what? These MAGA people consider black people their greatest enemy. Don't get it mixed. It is an actual fact. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. I'll be right back with my closing. This is The Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs. I got this from educator, TikTok creator named Jabber. You can check this out. America isn't just divided by race, it's divided by hierarchy. One that makes black Americans at the bottom, holding up everyone else. This caste system isn't an accident. It's been carefully constructed over centuries to maintain power for a select few. The thing is, caste doesn't wear a label. It's built into the systems we live with every day, from education to healthcare to criminal justice. Once you start seeing it, you can't unsee it. You know, people love to say the police are here to protect and serve. Yeah? Protect and serve who? Police isn't about public safety, it's about control. Over-policing black neighborhoods, stop and frisk policy, and even small-town police forces with military-grade weapons. It's about control. This isn't about people keeping people safe, it's about maintaining the status quo. And if the system feels broken, it's because you're not the one that it was built to serve. Here's a tough pill to swallow. Not all harm comes from the outside. During the war on drugs, some black leaders supported tough on crime policies, hoping to save their communities. Hold up right there. That means you don't understand the causes of crime in your community. The causes of crime and violence. It's not rocket science. Poverty breeds crime. Crime breeds violence. That's not rocket science. C-level student in sociology knows that. But black leaders supported tough on crime policies, hoping to save their communities. Instead, it led to mass incarceration and devastating consequences. Good intentions collided with systemic racism, proving that even when you're fighting for your community, the system can turn your efforts to weapons against you. Don't get it mixed. Emancipation didn't end slavery, it rebranded it. Convict leasing, sharecropping, and black codes forced black Americans into systems of unpaid labor for generations after 1865. Plantations didn't disappear. They just turned into prisons and company towns. This wasn't a glitch in the system. It was the system, and its legacy shapes labor and racial inequality to this day. Great migrations wasn't just about moving north for opportunity. It was about escaping terror. Millions of black families fled the South, running from lynch mobs, Jim Crow laws, and the daily acts of violence. But the North wasn't a safe haven. It had its own version of segregation and discrimination. You know, it makes me think of a scene from Cadillac Records. And the scene was in the 50s. Little Walter, intoxicated, R&B star, blues star, Little Walter. Great C harp player, harmonica for the uninitiated. Was disobedient to the cops. They beat him bloody. Yeah. Had his own version of discrimination. And these families weren't just seeking a new home, they were trying to survive. And the challenge is that things are still woven into the fabric of this country. Even in diverse schools, black kids often stick together. And it's not because they don't want to mix, it's because they're navigating a system that wasn't built for them. And they find strength in community. Understanding why kids self-segregate isn't about blaming them. It's about seeing how the system divides people even when it pretends it doesn't. You know what happens every time black Americans make progress? White lash. Reconstruction? Inner Jim Crow. Civil rights gains? Cue the war on drugs. The election of Barack Obama? Say hello to MAGA. White rage isn't loud or obvious, it's systemic, calculated, and devastatingly effective at rolling back progress. It is the reason that people have voted against their own interests and put in an incompetent, racist, convicted felon. Every step forward is met with a deliberate effort to shove things back to the way they were. Black Americans have been exploited in the name of science for centuries. Treated as lab rats instead of patients. The Tuskegee syphilis study is just the tip of the iceberg. Forced sterilizations, unethical experiments, and unequal care are all part of the story. These aren't just horrors from the past, they're foundations of today's healthcare disparities. The system was not built to heal black bodies. It was built to exploit them. Oh, you think affirmative action is controversial now? Imagine a version where it was explicitly for white people. Oh, you don't think that was so? After World War II, programs like the GI Bill helped millions of families build wealth and enter the middle class unless you were black. Redlining, exclusion, and outright racism locked black families out of these benefits. All white families gained a head start they've been passing down for generations. And it's interesting, you ask some of these people, some of these pull up yourself by your bootstraps people, why do you hate poor people? Oh, because they chose to be poor. The dumbest crap you ever heard. Segregation wasn't just about personal prejudice, it was federal policy. Redlining, zoning laws, and the government-backed practices that locked black families out of home ownership and starved their communities of investment. Still do. White suburbs flourished while black neighborhoods were systematically denied the resources to thrive. This wasn't just discrimination, it was policy written to the fabric of American cities. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. All right. Hope you learned something today. I know I did before I got here. And thank you for joining us on Open Eye. And thank our contributors, like Sister Sherry Bryson and others, Jagger, all right, Brother Stephen. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This has been The Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Thanks for joining us. All right. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show. As heard. And I heard you, Tony. Thank you. And as I always tell you, global African supremacy. The world was a much better place. Everybody ate. Under global African supremacy. All right, I'm Patrice Gibbs. Miss you, brother.